But then you should just go in the gallery and look for the Feinstein. And if you just go to the Feinstein thing, I'm going to pin it right now, so it'll be the main thing.
Where is it? I'm so sorry.
If you just scroll through your gallery, you should be able to see it.
Scroll where?
And then you might tell them you're just going to turn the volume down.
Okay.
So that we're not hearing all of their stuff.
Okay.
They can hear you, but we're not going to hear
Okay,
them.
sounds good.
You have what I have. It's the third one in the center on the top. I see mine on the big screen.
Oh, there it's. So there's the gravesite. Is under. Hannah Feinstein. Yes.
There it is.
Oh, Nina.
Okay, if everyone can go ahead and mute themselves, please.
You want us to mute ourselves?
Yeah, everyone just could please mute themselves.
Okay.
I have a second scan.
Okay, if you do, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
I take you.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to do it now?
They're pretty.
Okay, super. Okay.
When I say he's Hebrew, should I put Rav in front of it? Rav?
Yeah, right.
Harav.
Harav.
Harav. Put the ha in front.
Yeah.
Harav will ben Moshe.
And Umir. Thank you so much.
You want to hear, Rabbi?
I gotta keep it out of the
Rabbi
sun.
here?
Yeah, I gotta keep it out of the sun.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you so much.
Here. I'm just moving on.
Everybody, if you look at the top right corner of your screen, it says Gallery View or Speaker View. You click Speaker View, that should bring up what you're looking for.
How are you?
Okay, just put it in. Do you want the other one?
Yeah, let's go back.
I'm not sure which way he's gonna set up.
Okay. And I'll just make this. There we go. Okay. So, folks at home, just before we begin the service, we're going to do the important Jewish ritual of Kriya, of tearing the ribbon. We each wear ribbons, some of us, the children, on the side over the heart, the rest of us on the other side, as a form of mourning. We would like to show our grief and our pain on the outside, so that all of us who love you and care for you, that we can offer our caring and our support. We say a blessing together in just a moment, and the theme of the blessing is that God is a true judge, that things that He does we don't understand, but our goal is to have faith and trust and believe in all of His ways, even those things that we cannot understand. So let's say together the blessing. We'll first say it in Hebrew, then we'll say it in English. You can say Amen, or you can say the blessing with me. And then after we make the blessing, you'll go ahead and make a small tear in the ribbon and leave it in place. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha-emet. Blessed are you, O Lord, King of the universe, who is the true judge. Okay, you guys will go ahead and just make that tear, and we will go ahead and start the service in just a moment. I think everyone can see us okay, all right?
Begin with Psalm 121. Asai enai el haharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai aseh shamayim va'aretz. Al yitein amot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakevka v'yarech b'layla. Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra, yishmoret nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzedcha uvoecha me'ata v'ad olam.
Oh, you want me to do the English too? That'll be great.
If you have it.
I do have it.
This would be a little bit like a Marx Brothers, but in a good and caring way. I lift up mine eyes unto the mountains, from whence cometh my help? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. The Lord will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. The Lord is thy keeper. He is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul. You're going and you're coming, now and forever.
The 23rd Psalm. Adonai roi lo echsar bin ot desher bitzeni al mei menuchot yenaleini nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'magelei tzedek yancheni b'magelei tzedek למען שמו גם כי אלך בגץ על מוות לא יירא רק כי אתה עמדי שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני תערוך לפניי שולחן נגד צורריי דשנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. אדוני רואי לא אחסר, אדוני רואי
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And now call upon Matt Eisenberg to share with us words of eulogy and introduction.
We gather this afternoon, a saddened throng. A throng of family and friends, colleagues, associates, and admirers of our dear Rabbi Joel Matthew Chazin, Yoel ben Moshe Miriam. Joel has been a cherished colleague of Fred Eisenberg since he came to Montefiore in 1995, and he has endeared himself to many rabbis over these many years, both living and those who have departed us for Olam Haba. He's been a cherished colleague of mine since 1996. For many years, we covered each other's vacations and had many talks, agreements and disagreements, but always, for the sake of heaven, as we learn in the Talmud. We talked about the meaning of life, the Jewish people, the state of Israel. Many of us have learned with him and learned from him. His rabbinic presence and friendship will be sorely missed in our Jewish and non-Jewish circles. Rabbi Chazin's 84 years on this earthly abode are a reminder of a familiar and a favorite book of many of ours, a favorite book in Jewish life. In his 1967 book, The Chosen, Chaim Potok sets the characters in the 1940s, just after the Holocaust. David Malter, a Jewish scholar of failing health, rushes from meeting to meeting, from speech to speech, to win people to the Zionist cause, and in an effort to rescue the Jewish remnant from the Nazi death camps. His son Reuven is frightened that his father is endangering his health and protests that his father should slow down. David responded to his son Reuven with these words: I learned a long time ago, Reuven, that the blink of an eye is nothing, but the eye that blinks, that is something. A span of life is nothing, but the person that lives that span, he is something. He can fill that tiny span with meaning, so its quality is immeasurable, though the quantity may be insignificant. Do you understand what I'm saying? A person must fill his life with meaning. Meaning is not automatically given to life. It's hard work to fill one's life with meaning. A life filled with meaning is worthy of rest, and I want to be worthy of rest when I am no longer here. And our dear Joel Chazin is worthy of rest. Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be for a blessing. Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the beautiful words. I think Rabbi Matt has shown us there's two ways to remember Rabbi Chazin. In a very simple way that speaks directly from the heart, but there's a more verbose way, lots of words, lots of didactics, lots of sources to explain life and to understand it. So Rabbi Matt describes the essence, and I will probably give you the other side. There's a lot to say about Rabbi Chazin's life, about his accomplishments. But before we talk about him as a person, we certainly think about the people behind the camera, the people in the Zoom session. He leaves behind a lovely, devoted wife, Linda. He leaves behind his sister, Judith of Albuquerque, and his so sweet children, Shoshana, Shana, Aryeh. He leaves behind his grandchildren, Willow, who's here with us today, and such a privilege, Annie, Zev, Ellie, and Eliza, and numerous nieces and nephews. Our hearts go out to you. for your loss. Our heart goes out to the Cleveland community who have lost a dear rabbi, to a lot of friends, a lot of good friends that he made over the years who are bereaved of a good man in their life. I want to tell you a little bit about the story of Rabbi Chazin, and that it's funny, even though he was a great speaker, I don't recall him speaking a whole lot about himself. He certainly talked a lot about his ideas and his thoughts and his opinions, but where he came from, his roots, I must admit, I didn't know so much. That was one topic he didn't really talk about as much. He would love to talk about your roots, where you came from, but his own. So for me, this was some of it new information, but it gave me tremendous insight into the greatness of his character. Rabbi Joel was born in Jamaica Estates in Queens, New York. He was born to a very accomplished and very bright family, very big shoes to fill. His father was a professor and an educator. His mother was herself a valedictorian and a teacher of Russian history. His sister, who's with us, Judith, was also a very bright, talented youngster. He wanted to fill these shoes. He wanted to become great like the rest of his family. And indeed, it was a lot of pressure. But he did pretty good. He was a valedictorian himself of his high school, Jamaica High School, and he was able to be admitted to Amherst College under a full scholarship, where he graduated magna cum laude. His liberal arts, his college years were some of his best. He had many warm memories of the pluralism, the liberalism, and the idealism of his fellow classmates. As someone who was a true humanist, a lover of all cultures, being in this form of higher education was his paradise. But there was one thing that was maybe missing a little bit that he would create on his own. One of the most important things about life to him was his people, was Israel, Zionism. And so he always could, whenever he could, pursue additional learning in this most important area. He pursued a master's in Jewish history, and he focused on the founding of the fledgling state of Israel, which at that time was quite new. His love of Israel and his excellent memory made him a walking encyclopedia on Israel, Zionism, and all of its history. This part I didn't know, which was that after Amherst, he moved to Boston. He went to Harvard Law School. And he definitely didn't talk about this a lot. And he was able to receive a full scholarship to Harvard Law School, but it didn't take very long for him to realize that law school and Harvard was not for him. I guess he was looking, he was really searching. And it was a short conversation with the rabbi of the Hillel on campus who said, why don't you go to JTS, the Jewish Theological Seminary, and pursue rabbinical ordination? And that he did. This wish, this Jewish stir in him was strong, and compounded with experiences in camp and a love of Camp Ramah and the Ruach and the traditions of Judaism, it was pretty easy for him to receive his doctorate of divinity in 1958. During this time, he met Linda, 11 years his junior, in a library. The two of them spent some time together at Camp Ramah, and they knew they wanted to be married together only months later. They were both extremely spirited people. They were both people who didn't want to wait for life to happen. They made life happen. And they were set for a great destiny together. They were certainly the yin and the yang. They were certainly complements to each other's very special, unique personalities. Rabbi Joel officiated at congregations in Queens, New York, in Connecticut, in Grand Rapids, in Michigan, I think Virginia too, and even Palm Beach, Florida. He loved his work. He loved working with people, helping to bring healing to them, inspiring them, and always being tolerant of people's faux pas, tolerant of people's beliefs that were not his own. He always enjoyed the opportunity to stand behind the pulpit and share with people well-crafted oratories. He loved to imbue them with passages of the Torah and the Talmud and other Jewish sources. But he always felt his speech was not complete unless it was mixed in with a fair amount of New York Times, a fair amount of academic research, and secular sources. But with all of these positives in the rabbinate, the politics and the human challenges of the people in the synagogues proved to be quite stressful, which I'm sure a lot of people here, many of the rabbis in attendance, can attest to. That one of the hardest jobs in the world is to be a community rabbi. And I'm not even talking about fundraising. So he definitely put up with a lot of aggravation, to say the least, to perform this kind of ministry. And he was a very sensitive person. He took things very deeply. And when people weren't good, when people didn't do the right thing, it really hurt him a lot, because he himself was so sincere and truly meant the best for all the people he worked with. He came to Northeast Ohio, the boy from New York, in 1992, and he served as the rabbi of Aguda B'nai Israel synagogue in Lorraine. It didn't take a lot. Again, it took a short conversation with an influential person who said, by the way, maybe an hour or so away, there's a nursing home called Montefiore in Beechwood, and they're looking for a new chaplain. I don't think it took him more than a few seconds, and that was the days before email and whatnot, and he had in express mail the same day an application for the job. He showed up for the interview, and the rest was history. He served Montefiore and the Jewish community of Beechwood for more than 22 years until his retirement in 2018. He wasn't shy to say that these 22 years were the best years of his working life. He loved the time connecting with residents. You could see him all the time walk into the dining room, and there he was sitting with somebody talking with them for who knows how long. Time didn't matter. He always gave people the time to share, time to tell him about their problems. And I remember many times you would see certain ladies, forgive me for not being so smooth here, who were like all clammy and excited, and their faces were red, that this rabbi came to her or him, sat with him, and gave him all this attention. They honestly didn't know what to do with it. They were really blushing from the attention and the experience. He did many things, and one of the things he really was a shadchan. Even though he wasn't from Cleveland, he knew Cleveland Jewish geography more than anyone in town. He knew your cousin, he knew your nephew, he knew what business your family used to own, or in who your competition was. And he used this as a great tool. He really brought together a lot of people who had no idea they were related, simply due to his vast, excellent memory. And I must admit, this is a little bit irreverent, but one of the things that helped him, besides his wit and his personality, was that he was a very dapper dresser. Having a seasonal wardrobe, having the latest suits, having the perfect matching tie, and his shoes were never the same. How many pairs of shoes can a gentleman own? I guess you could ask him, but he had quite a few. And it certainly helped to grease the wheels of the already excellent relationships that he had with people. Well, he was a Montefiore. He did a lot of things. He instituted a summer concert series, Songs of a Summer's Night. He created a Sunday morning breakfast called Food for Thought, and got some pretty professional, pretty fancy speakers to come and speak in the nursing home. He decided that the residents need more than just simple Torah classes, they needed institutes. So he implemented the Montefiore Torah Institutes. So in addition, if this wasn't enough, besides classes, besides the one-on-ones, he really wanted to be a publisher. And he took great pride in publishing a trilingual Passover Haggadah in English, in Hebrew, and of course, in Russian. He also edited a couple times the weekday prayer books and the Sabbath prayer books to make sure they were right for our current population. One of the things that people remember him most for at Montefiore was just his presence during the High Holy Days. During the months of September and October of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, his family shared with me that he wasn't the same person once August came around. He was constantly focused on what would he say? What would the message be? What do people need to know? Have you heard anything interesting? He would always ask me, have you heard anything interesting that I could tell the people over in my High Holy Day sermons? This mattered to him greatly. But what's interesting is that you could tell him a lot of things, give him many divrei Torah, many ideas, but if it didn't include the themes of tolerance and sensitivity and humanism, he wasn't too interested. So that always had to be in there, no matter what. But I think anyone who's a staff member of Montefiore, who may not be as familiar as a not Jewish person with the Jewish holidays, if you were to ask them what was Rabbi Chazin's big day at Montefiore, and they would say immediately it was Martin Luther King Day. So that was really his day. He loved it for many reasons, but one of the reasons he loved it was that he always felt that Black history and Jewish history had a lot of connections and parallels. And he felt that people didn't realize it. People didn't really take it to heart. So that if he put on a good MLK Day and he was the host, the sponsor, that people would make that connection, would see that parallel. And I would say he was very successful in doing so. I don't think people could forget the image of this rabbi from the suburban congregation in a nursing home in Beechwood who felt so strongly about Black history and about Martin Luther King Day. It was really his favorite day. He was on top of the world. Another thing that was important to him, I alluded to earlier, was just the people and the relationships in his life. He was a person who enjoyed his friends so much. He loved to talk, he loved to share. And I think what was special is that he had friends who could sit down with and have a cup of coffee with, but as the rabbi of Montefiore, who often needed a lot of help He needed people, a gabbai. He needed someone to arrange the Torah readings, someone to make sure people had their places, someone to give a prayer book to, someone to make sure that the services were still going on even when he was in the hospital. He needed a lot of people who could be there for him. When he was doing great, they would cheer and sit in the audience and smile and be supportive. But when he couldn't be there, when he couldn't attend for weeks at a time because of a bad illness, they just took care of business, no questions. They didn't ask for compensation or help, they just did it. So I don't want to forget anyone, but those people who are here today and some on Zoom, in particular Norm Bloom, Trina Miller, Ed Wittenberg, Cheryl Heitman, and many others, you guys helped the rabbi to be at his greatest. Because when he was up there and he was shining, you reflected it back. And when he couldn't be there for Montefiore, and there was no one else to do things, you were there. And so as the current rabbi of Montefiore, I thank you so much for carrying the torch of our services and what you did for the people of Montefiore. There's no way we could ever pay the debt of gratitude that for your great service. He had many connections with the clergy in the community, but I found it funny that they all considered him a friend, but as Matt did, many times they do mention the few times they disagreed with him, that it was not forgettable. So he relished the opportunity to host the Board of Rabbis. And I remember whenever there was a Board of Rabbis meeting coming up in Montefiore, he would make a big deal about it. He would make sure you got the best boardroom. He would make sure the kitchen didn't just make tuna salad sandwiches and wraps. He would make sure that for the rabbis of the community, they got the best possible options available, because he was really respected the rabbis and the rabbinate as a whole. Now, as we come to the end of my words, which I guess have become a little extensive, I just want to share one thing that I guess we'll remember him the most at, and I think it's a very appropriate memory. The memory is that towards the end of his life, he felt it was very important to give a person a proper eulogy. And I know there are times, we have community rabbis here, when sometimes it was a little bit of a struggle, because you as a community rabbi knew so-and-so from Fairmont Temple or Park, you had a long connection with him. But Rabbi Chazin often wanted to be the one to make sure that he could eulogize as well and share. And I think it was because he really felt that he could make people shine, is that he really knew people, he really understood them, and that when he eulogized them, the words that he chose were so important. He really raised them up on a banner. He made people realize how good they were and appreciate how special the people in their lives were. But I think also what was notable is that Rabbi Chazin had a commitment to truth, is that there were quite a few eulogies where he said things that actually were not so good about people. He wasn't shy to mention the things that a person could have worked on. And I think to do so takes guts. It takes a lot of guts to do that. But he felt that he was changing the world and making the world a better place and being so honest. Now, I should probably stop, but I want to talk about one last value of Rabbi Chazin, and I think this will explain why I can't stop. And the value is perseverance. I don't say this lightly, but I have never met a human being who has the perseverance of Rabbi Chazin. And I'll throw in Linda Chazin too. She's also got a fair dose of it. But I have never met a person who so does not give up, so will not release his wishes and his intentions, no matter what life sends him. Towards the end of his career, he really couldn't drive very well. He was a total danger behind the wheel, but he would not stop and go to a funeral. He would drive to the funeral in the middle of the winter. I don't even know if he knew which direction his car was going in, but he would go. There were times that he officiated people's funerals, and he really couldn't stand. He was on medication that made him so dizzy. I don't think he could see straight or stand straight. And he literally had to have two people on each side.
Your phone froze up.
I'm sorry, okay.
No, I don't know how to do it. You'll stop the middle of the sentence.
How do you want this called? Oh, it's
Here, back on.
yeah.
Good.
Thank
Believe
you
me,
very
I
much.
don't know what to do with that. Thank you very much.
So, just to finish things up here, that he gave so much to Montefiore. He really gave his whole life and so much time to us here at Montefiore. He really cherished his staff at Montefiore. He really loved them, and he really made them feel very good. And they truly will miss him. But one of the main things is that he brought his lovely family into Montefiore. The times he was very happy with the High Holy Days, he was very happy officiating the services, but there was no happiness like when Linda and his girls would come up to the bima and sit at the table during the Passover Seder, or they would come to the Rosh Hashanah services, and he was beaming with joy to be able to show off and share this lovely family that stood behind him all these years. So on behalf of Montefiore, on behalf of all the rabbis of the community, on behalf of Beechwood, I just want to thank the family for sharing him with us, giving him all those hours that he gave to Montefiore. We cannot give back to you. So my heart goes out to you. And as I said before, your father, your grandfather, your husband, he was blessed with tremendous perseverance and tremendous strength. And I know your family all has that. You guys have it in your genes, the tenacity, the fearlessness, the determination. And I only pray that God should bless you with that tenacity and fearlessness and strength to do great things. And you should be just like your father, your husband, your grandfather, have that drive, that commitment to your people. And he really loved everybody, though he didn't agree with everybody. And he really wanted to bring tolerance and humanism and a love of Israel and a love of Judaism to everybody. So God willing, with his inspiration, with his strength, we can all do that. And I really say that I can't leave the life of Rabbi Chazin without saying that I don't do enough. I don't work hard enough. I give up way too easy when I see that what a man like him could accomplish. So my apologies for so many words, but I felt there was stuff I couldn't just skip and take out. But closer to the heart, is the words and expressions of his dear family. And somehow Shana has the strength and the bravery herself, and she's going to share with us a few words about her father. Shana, are you there? Okay. So you're unmuted? I can hear you?
I'd like to share two stories. These are two of my best memories of my father that I really feel like illuminate his character. And one is his desire to connect with those that he loved. He would announce to me very seriously that I want to go to the bookstore with you. And it was not for one book that we went for, but for 2 or 3. And I'd always throw in a bookmark or some little thing at the end, and he'd pretend not to see. It was like parallel play. We'd be in different stacks in different parts of the bookstore, but both of us would pour over the contents of what we found to be so fascinating, and we both loved to look very luxuriously at all the spines of the books, and it was a supreme joy for him to have his library. And he said to me once that these authors are my friends and they keep me company, and they silently chatter amongst themselves and have arguments. And my father was like that because he always had differing ideas in his head and was always struggling with various contradictions and competing philosophies. Another sacred memory is all the family gatherings that he had, and the more family at the table, the better. And especially seeing his children and grandchildren and my mom, anybody could attend. He wanted everybody to participate, and I think that's reflected in his democratic ideals. While he wanted to be the leader, he also coaxed a response from the most reluctant participants. And what I remember very lovingly about my father is he was very non-judgmental in whatever anybody had to say at the table. And sometimes a young person would struggle with the text, or an older person, and in his low tenor, he would guide them and just correct and not show any affect at all, like it didn't even happen, and just move on, and always end with a compliment or a good word and continue the narrative of the service. He was very proud of the services that he led, especially when there was art involved or performance, which he was a deep lover of the arts and a deep admirer of his sister's accomplishments in dance and in artistry. And in his own way, he was also an artist, as a caregiver and one who provided comfort and spiritual something that we always sort of wrangled over, and I think anybody who knew him well really struggled and sort of marveled at his passion and sometimes his obstinance. I know he felt very deeply about his place in Montefiore, and he considered it a second family and a place where he could practice his art of being a chaplain and a rabbi. When he crafted a sermon's delivery, he always gauged his audience's response. He tried to make his messages both current and timely. And he very much wanted to pass on both homily and future dialogue. What I most admire most in is that which any human being strives to obtain, and that of his standards of excellence. As a caregiver, as an orator, and as one who truly loved putting his morals and ideals into practice with his very hard work. I'll always remember him sitting back in his chair, scratching his head, and writing on a leaf pad in his library. The text was more valuable than the spoken word. That made more valuable than spoken aloud and shared and interpreted, comprehended or founded by its reader or its participants. He manifested. He manifested text of life in service to his fellow humans as a way in which to connect to the divine and the mysterious. I think these are the ways in which he sought to rectify his own imperfections and trespasses inherent to being alive. He was a reverent lover of the arts and writing, and as a rabbi, he enacted his artistry and made his personhood as an artist. That's you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shana. And lastly, we call upon his sister, Judith Benahum.
Well, actually, I did my speech. So I wanted to tell Shana that was absolutely the most eloquent, comprehensive, and beautiful enunciation of my brother. That was incredibly wonderful, and I thank you for that. You spent a lot of time thinking about it, and you brought out, I think, the most important points that would pertain to his life. His passion, his fierce love of Israel, his adoration for the people he was serving, his love for his family, and finally his love of life. He was a man who really loved life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judith. Now we call again upon our cantor, Gary Baller, who's going to share with us a song entitled Tefillat Haderech, a prayer for the journey. And this was one of Rabbi Chazin's favorite songs. He would always have Trina sing this at the memorial services, and he very much identified with the ideas of the song. And so we say together a prayer for him as he goes on his special journey to the world to come.
May we be blessed as we go on our way. May we be guided in peace. May we be blessed with health and joy. May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. May we be sheltered by the wings of peace. May we be kept in safety and in love. May grace and compassion find their way to every soul. May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen.
Now we just move from the eulogy portion of our service to the portion of the actual interment. We now lower the casket, lower in the ground, and soon we will join in this precious mitzvah of the Chesed Shalemis, the true kindness that we can do for Rabbi Chazin, and him being buried, the earth being placed upon him in his final rest by his close friends and by his family. His family who cannot be here, we definitely will think of them and put a symbolic shovel for each of them, who would like to be there, but only they cannot. Folks, we'll make 2 lines, one on that side, one on this side. We'll take the shovel, place, 1 shovel full of earth, place it back in the pile, and the next person will do the same.
Just let it fall back a little bit.
Yeah, he's gonna bring it back in.
Sorry.
Do some extra shovels for the family. Can't be here to participate. got too hot, so. Okay. Just let it cool a little bit. Cantor Gary.
Oh, my leg.
We're going to close the service now. Thank you to everyone for their participation, for everyone being here. The family doesn't expect anyone to give a donation or to charity, but if anyone would like to give anything in the name of Rabbi Chazin, a donation to the Montefiore Foundation, Menora Park Montefiore Foundation, would be much appreciated. Cantor Peller is now going to sing for us the Kel Mali Rachamim, the memorial prayer. The family is going to be having a special form of Shiva over the Zoom. So for today, Wednesday and Thursday, from 7 to 8 p.m., there's going to be a special Zoom Shiva, an opportunity to share some words and to spend time with the family, and the details and the link should be forthcoming.
שוכן במרומים המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמת הרב יואל בן משה ומרים שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו אנא בעל הרחמים הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום בשלום על משכבו
O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of our most beloved, our Rabbi, Joel, the son of Moshe and Miriam, who has gone into his place and for whom we pray. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. The Lord is his portion. May he rest in peace, and may we say together, Amen. The last part of the service is the recitation of the Kaddish, the raising up of God's name at a time of pain and difficulty as a merit for the person who has gone on to the next world. And so we have joining us at home, We have the various members of the Chazin family who will be reciting the Kaddish from their own homes and joining in a special spiritual minyan that crosses all time zones and boundaries and brings us all together, connected to the one soul of Rabbi Chazin. But here in person, here in the presence of this minyan, we invite a good friend, Ed Wittenberg, who will recite the Kaddish in conjunction with the family who has the obligation. So folks at home, if they want to stand as they recite the Kaddish, we'll do so nice and slow, word for word.
Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbi v'yamad yivrach yirhutei v'yimlich malchutei v'chayei hon v'yamei hon v'chayei tchol beit Yisrael v'alav v'zman kariv v'yimromein
Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Barach
v'olam v'yamaya yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yipramam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yithalal shmei kudusha b'richu v'elah min kol birchata v'shirata tishbachata nechemata da'amiran v'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Shalom imromav, Yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
So we complete the service at this moment, and normally we would make two lines, and we would have the mourners walking between two lines of us, in which we can give our condolences. But under these circumstances, we cannot do that. But each of us, on behalf of everyone here, to the whole Chazin family, to the wife, to the children, to the grandchildren, we all say, Hamakum Yinachem Etchem B'Sok Sharaveli Sion Yerushalayim. May the omnipresent comfort you among all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Thank you, everybody. May his memory be for a beautiful blessing, and we thank him for all that he did for our community.
This concludes our service. Thank you.